All right, and welcome back to the Saturday afternoon stream. I'm Angela, front-end developer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and finish up this modal window that we started last weekend. Let's take a look. So I went ahead and put the Heroku link in the chat for anybody who wants to look. I also have this in a GitHub repository, and anybody who wants to download this or fork it, whatever, you're absolutely welcome to do so. Everything I do on these streams is open source and available for anybody who wants to use them, no problem. I don't have a Photoshop document for this. I'm using two sites, this Hourglass Cosmetics and mattressfirm.com. Here's the modal for Mattress Firm. And I mean, this is a really common e-commerce or anybody who's building an email list. This is a really common technique. And I thought, I would really like to build this. We don't do this where I work, so I thought this would be a great thing to build out. We have our modal built, we have our form built. Today we need to finish up some CSS. I do also want to implement, so when we dismiss the modal, there's a little persistent button, and we can bring that back up. Mattress Firm and Hourglass both do that, and I didn't even notice that until after I had decided to do this, so I think that's pretty cool. I do want to write a cookie so we can capture the user's decision and make a decision about whether or not we're showing the modal again in 24 to 48 hours, 7 to 10 days, whatever. Presumably that's a decision that your analytics team would make, or that you would make together on how to do that. But we do need to build that persistent button and make a decision about where we're going to put it. I think in the lower left-hand corner is a great idea. On Hourglass, there's a little bit of a transition here, or animation transition, whatever you want to call it. So when I click it, it has a nice animation with how that's moving. And let's see on Mattress Firm how theirs looks. Yeah, so there isn't so much an animation on the button itself. There's an animation when we open the modal, but nothing else. So, and I would actually be happy with that. I think that would be fine. I think either is a perfectly acceptable user experience. So we do need to add in the markup for the persistent button. We need to, what I would like to use is animate CSS. Animate CSS, it just makes it so easy to use this. So I'm just going to download this and include it as in our SAS files. We don't really need every single thing in Animate. And if I was working on a project that would, go into like an enterprise or a production site, I would not. I would add animate CSS and do my animation, do my transitions, and then I would go in and delete everything else that's in animate and only keep the keyframes and the classes that apply to what I'm doing. I'm not going to do that for this. I'm just going to include it in the project. And then if you fork it and use it and work on it, you have all the files. You can do what you want to do with it. But it's a great script. I've been using Animate for, we can test here. I've been using Animate for 10 years, a long time, like practically since I first started working or learning to code front end, I discovered Animate. So we'll go ahead and use that. So let's go ahead and just get started and actually write a little JavaScript here. So I'm just going to do a main.js. And one moment here. Okay, just organizing some of my windows. All right, so we have a main.js. I guess we could put that in a folder. We'll just call it JS. And then let's add that to our HTML. Sorry, having some mouse issues. There we go. Okay. And then in main.js, I'm just going to do document. We'll add event listener, DOM content loaded. And then we'll go ahead and put anything that we need inside this event listener to load our functions. Oh, and I just thought of something else that I do not have pulled up here. My notes. Because yes, I take notes. Streaming is dynamic. Gonna open for me? No. All right, there we go. All right, so we have our event listener, and I want 2 event listeners. So I want to, well, really, we'll have 3 event listeners because we want to be able to click anywhere outside of the modal to dismiss it. So on Hourglass, if the modal is up, you can click anywhere outside to dismiss it. And I think that's the same functionality on Mattress Firm. Yes. So we want that to be an event listener. We want an event listener when you click the X, and we want an event listener when you click no thanks. Our cookie is going to remember those decisions, and we can have 3 cookies with 3 separate timers, one for outside the modal, one for no thanks, one for the X, or we can have 1 cookie that remembers the decision. I think I'm just going to write 1 cookie. When I started last weekend, I thought, oh, we could do, if you click no thanks, that's like an opt-out. So don't show it again for 10 days. If you click the X, you're just maybe being passive, and we'll show it again in 48 hours. I'm just going to write 1 cookie, and then anybody who forks the repository, you could absolutely implement additional cookies for additional buttons. So I'm just going to do 1, but we do need to make sure that we have 3 ways to dismiss this. The other thing we need to keep in mind is when the modal is up, do we want people to still be able to scroll? So it's different for each of these sites. So on Hourglass, yes, you can scroll. And I feel like Mattress Firm, you could not. Yeah. So on Mattress Firm, you can't. So we'll go ahead and add an active class to the body. So when the body has the active class, the overflow on the y-axis is hidden, which will prevent being able to scroll. So let's just get some event listeners in and start adding these. Well, actually, no, let's add our classes first so we can actually see how things function. So let's start with the body. Again, I'll take my own advice and we'll go from top to bottom. So let's start with styles. Here's our body. So when we have an active class, we're going to say overflow Y hidden. And we can test that now by going directly to the body. Well, actually, let's do this in our markup. So here's our body. We'll say class. I'm just going to leave that empty there. That makes it easier for me to edit. I'll say active. So now, oh, you're still scrolling. How come you're still scrolling? Fine. Oh, you're still scrolling. Body active overflow hidden. Oh, I do not have. Yeah, our SAS watch is not running. So here's our SAS watch right here. I always keep it as a comment inside our variables. There we go. Now SAS is running and looking for new CSS. We'll keep that up there. Okay, now look at that. Now we have our body with a class of active overflow hidden. Now this doesn't scroll. Easy peasy. Love it. So I think the next thing we want to do is say, so how do we want to dismiss the modal? The modal is fixed. It takes up the entire screen. I think we need to do, we don't want to do pointer event none because that makes it like it doesn't even exist. I think we just want to say that when we, well, first of all, if the modal window also has an active class, then the modal is up. There we go. Modal window. So if it's active, then we can see it. So let's go back to our CSS. And here's our modal. So right now we can see it because it has this higher Z index. So the Z index is not the correct way to show this. So I think that we should do, well, if it's, so this is where the accessibility question comes in, doesn't it? Because if it's being dismissed, it should be display none. It should not be read by a screen reader. But on page load, it will be seen. So I don't think that we have to do anything special accessibility-wise to hide it, because we'll use a function, we'll use the set timeout function to show the modal on page load within like 3 to 5 seconds. So we don't have to do any hiding, we just have to load it after the page loads. And then once it's dismissed, it should be display none, because if you're dismissing it, I don't want the screen reader to still be able to read it. Yeah. So I think if we just do an active class of display none, that's all we need to do. So again, our modal, active display none. Perfect. Let's refresh here. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. So now we want to put that animation on it. So when the active class is added, the animation will give us that nice smooth transition. So let's go get our, hang on, where do we actually get this? Here, GitHub. Maybe it's this little GitHub right here. I just want, yeah, I'm just going to grab the vanilla. So we'll go into our Sass, we'll say animate, copy it right in, and then let's add it to our main. I'm going to put it right after normalize. Now we just have to decide what we want, how we want this to animate in. And I think I want this to be, so here's a sliding entrance. Slide or fade. Here's fading exit, fading entrance, fade in up. I mean, I kind of like that. Fade in up big. I think that's a little too big. No, we can just do fade in up. Yeah. So I think the way we do this is we just add a class. I think all we have to do is add animate and the class fade in up. I'm pretty sure. Let's just try it. So animate fade in up, and then if it goes from, and then the active controls the display none. Let's see if this works. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's try it. We might have to we might have to, if we take these out, if it's, can you tell I haven't used this in a while? Let's take out the active and just see how it loads. I might have the classes wrong. Oh yeah, I do have the classes wrong. So it's animate underscore animated and then animate underscore the class names. Got it. So we'll add this. Well, actually, do this. Yeah, it brings up the entire container though. So I think what we probably want is to put that on the modal window and then put active on the parent. Everything ends up being a little trickier than I thought it was going to be. Do I need active? I don't know if I need active. That's why I'm so glad. Oh, active is display none. Hang on, we need to fix that too. I knew something didn't make sense. So this is actually going to be, active is actually going to be display block. And the default is going to be display none. Ooh, we're close. We're getting so close. All right. She's a little off kilter though, isn't she? Let's figure out why. But that's basically what I wanted. Let's see if this... So if we take out display block, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. Look at that. That makes me so happy. Okay, so I'm guessing this is a little off because there's some positioning in these animate classes. I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. Well, I bet there's like a keyframe or something. Where are you, animate? Yeah, so the keyframe for fade in up is using a transform. I am also using a transform to position. So I think that means that I have to do my positioning differently, and let animate do its own transform. So I have a transform here to position this in the center of the page, and it is technically centered in the center of the page. So top 50%, left 50%. That means that this corner right here, this upper left-hand corner, is at the 50% mark. Now, I like to use transform, translate negative 50% x-axis, negative 50% y-axis, because that automatically calculates the height and the width of the container it's positioning. Let's see what's happening here. I think I got disconnected. All right, well, I think the stream is back, so sorry about that. If we got disconnected, I don't think you missed much. We're figuring it out. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep moving. We're moving forward. I'll watch this back afterwards and I'll check and see what we lost. Okay, so like I was saying, we know that we have a fixed width of 780 pixels and a fixed height of 500 pixels. So I'm pretty sure I can just do like a calc 50% minus, and let's see here, where's my calculator? 780 divided by 2. oops, excuse me, 780 divided by 2 is 390. We'll see if this method works. There's lots of ways to do this. And then, no, that's actually wrong. It should be 250. 250 because it's 500 tall. There we go. And then left can be also 50% minus 390 pixels. There we go. And that centers it evenly. You could also do top left, top 50%, left 50%, and then you could use margin top negative 250 pixels, margin left negative 390 pixels. I'm going to do this because I think this is easiest. So, all right, so I don't think we need this anymore. I mean, I would say I generally, like I said, after a project, I'll come in and delete all the things that I'm not using. Other than that, I don't really mess with anything in Animate. I just choose which classes I want to use. So let's see. So instead of transform, we'll go ahead and do calc 50% minus 250 pixels. And then we'll do left 50% minus 390 pixels. Now, when we refresh, oh, look how nice that is. I love it. I love it. Why are we getting errors? Oh, there's something wrong with my... What did I do wrong here? Oh, I think I'm supposed to do... There we go. Okay. Oh, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I was thinking about this week. I was thinking, I don't know. I think a lot about like how much should I prepare ahead of time, because I don't like to look like I don't know what I'm doing. But the whole point of these live streams is that I can practice and learn something new, and that maybe somebody else will get something else out of it. And quite frankly, I just don't have time to sit and like learn how to do it just so I can appear to look smarter in the live stream. And I don't think that's really the point anyways. A real developer, this is the workflow of a real developer, and I'm happy to show that to people. I'm happy to be transparent and to show that to people. I was not sure how this was going to work, so I'm absolutely delighted. So we should be able to just have this active class. If I delete that, and then I Command Z on the keyboard to add it, that's exactly the behavior that I was hoping to have. So I'm really, really happy that it worked exactly the way I thought it would, because not everything does. So that means that we can have our animated classes live on this div. So far, our active classes on page load with a set timeout are going to be body active and modal window active. I mean, that's really it in order to activate this. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's figure that out now. So let's do that. So I am going to ask ChatGPT to refresh my memory on how to do a set timeout. How do I do a set timeout in JavaScript to add a class? Let's see what it says. Okay, so let's start with this. not going to use var. I'm just going to say const body, document query selector body. And we'll say const window, or I'm going to call it modal. Modal equals document and it's, yep, just modal window. And then we're going to body modal we're just going to add active and we'll do 2 seconds. Yeah. So let's see how this works. So if we refresh, oh, did I not take off active? Of course not. Where else? Look at that. I love it. I love it. This is exactly what I wanted. Excellent. So now let's add markup with a button. So when this is dismissed, well, let's actually make sure that this can be dismissed first. So those would be, so we need 3. So we need to, basically you would click anywhere, so you would click anywhere on the modal window. So does that mean you could also just click here? No. So I think the modal window itself, I have to think about this. I don't want the modal window itself to be pointer events none. I just want anything outside. To think about that for a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on something else while we're waiting, while we're thinking. Yeah, and I think 2 seconds is perfect. I love that. And I hope you notice that I try to do as much with CSS as possible. I mean, there are lots of situations where it's totally appropriate to have the JavaScript handle the functionality. But in these cases, CSS can do almost everything we want it to do. And then adding and removing classes with click events is the ideal way to handle that. It's so much cleaner. It's so much more efficient. So here's the thing. If I put pointer events none on the modal window container, I don't think the form will work. And that's not what I want. But I want to be able to click anywhere outside the modal window, anywhere outside the container on the gray area to dismiss. Let's ask, am I overthinking this? Let's ask ChatGPT, see if it has an opinion. When I click out, well, it doesn't know my markup. So is this a good question to even ask ChatGPT? Here's the thing, when I ask vague questions and it doesn't know what my markup looks like, oops, that's not what I wanted, come on. Okay, well, let's just show it our markup. That seems like the obvious answer. when I click outside modal window container, I basically want to remove an active class from modal window, its parent container. And then I'm just gonna pop it in, see what it says. Nice. Okay, so we do need JavaScript for this. So to remove the active class from the parent modal window when clicking outside the modal window container, you can add an event listener on the modal window itself. This listener will check if the click happened outside the modal window container, and if so, remove the active class. Here's a way to achieve this. Okay, excellent. So we don't need this. We already have this because we just did it for our set timeout. Although, do we need this inside this function? Can it live outside the set timeout so it can be used in other spots? Let's see. No, good. I struggle with scoping. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. So I think, so we have an event listener from the modal window with a click function. And a click function on mobile would be a tap, so we'll have to test it. If the modal window container contains the event target, modal window class was removed active, add an event listener to dismiss, oh, and it gave us an event listener to dismiss the modal also. Okay. Gosh, it feels like cheating sometimes. It feels like cheating, but I don't mind. I mean, I can spend a couple hours trying to figure it out myself, which is what I've been doing for the last 10 years, or I can get a little help, and I'm fine with the help. Let's see here. We want to make sure that, I just want to change these names. No, not there. Okay, so modal add event listener click. Okay, well, let's try this and see what happens. Okay. Clicking outside. Look at that. Oh, we need to remove it from the body too. Otherwise we won't be able to scroll. Okay. But that works. That works. So we want to also remove from the body. Wow, this is exciting. And now we click outside and it's removed. And if we refresh, yes. Love it. Whoops. And then I think add a listener to dismiss button to close the modal. We're going to want to do the same for the body. So we'll add this here as well. And then let's see if ChatGPT can help us with a little bit of refactoring. So now it'll come back up, presumably. Nope. There we go. So if we click the button, that also dismisses it. So now on page load, okay. And this is where our cookie is going to come in, because obviously now on page load, every time the page loads, those classes get shown and the modal gets shown. So we want that cookie, so on page load, we can check to see if there's a cookie set. If the cookie is set, we don't run the set timeout function. That's what we want. So we still have a few steps to go here, but this is the part that was stressing me out this week, thinking about doing this stream. This is the part where I was like, I don't know if that animation is going to work, and I'm not sure how this all is going to work. And so far it's working exactly how I imagined it, which makes me so happy. So happy. So if you're a developer and you're not sure about ChatGPT, I would encourage you to use it. It is such a time saver. Yes, I can absolutely do all of these things myself. Well, we should leave these comments in, shouldn't we? We can absolutely do all of these things ourselves, but what's the difference between Googling and reading 25 Stack Overflow or Medium articles that never really answer your question, or you continue to try things that don't work? What's the difference between that and getting help sooner? It's time and energy. And in my opinion, look how nicely ChatGPT explains how these things work, gives us an explanation for what's working and what isn't working. I think of all the times that I found a solution for something and yeah, it worked. I felt hacky. I didn't know if it was really the right way to do it. I didn't have a good explanation for why it did or didn't work. And yeah, I mean, if you know how to prompt ChatGPT, it will give you good results. It's not perfect. It's very, very good. It's not excellent, but it's very, very good. And for things like this that are relatively straightforward, but you know, still a little confusing, it's obviously pretty darn good. So, okay, so what's the next? So we should we just make this a button? Sure, why not? Save 10% today. So the whole thing will be a button. And then this is going to be fixed positioning. Bottom. Also, we'll say bottom 0, left 0 for now. Oh, I suppose I should give it a position. And then I'm going to say width, I don't know, 200 pixels. That seems kind of big, but I just want to make sure I can see it first. Height, 50 pixels. We can give it a background color of white, and probably needs some z-index. We'll just do 3 to be safe. Let's see how it looks. Oh. 50%. There you go. Okay. Yeah, that looks great. And then let's give it a cursor. I know this is hotly debated, giving your buttons a cursor. I think sometimes it's a better user experience. So if we hover here now, and we only want this button to appear when this is dismissed. So that means the button if the button has an active class, so if the button has an active class, then the modal window doesn't have an active class. Or, yeah, so if the, yeah. So we have to keep our actives straight. So maybe we should say modal button not active, or we could say modal not active. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say, so I'm going to just give it a static modal not modal not active. And then modal not active. So if the modal is not active, this is display, it would be display none, but if the modal is not active, then it would be display block. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we can figure this out. So it would not be part of the set timeout. Well, maybe it would. Well, let's get it defined up here. So I think on page load, we don't do anything because by default it's display none. So I think we would want to do it here. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm rethinking active versus not active. Well, hang on, I didn't even. So if we're removing active, then we would want to add active to the modal button. And same here. If we're removing active, then we want to add active to the modal button. And on page load, it's already display none by default. Okay, so we'll just need an additional event listener. So when an additional listener to click the button. Yeah, an additional event listener to click the button, and then that would remove active and show, and then yes, okay, because adding active isn't just done on page load, it's done by clicking the button. Okay. So I am going to switch back and just do active. Now that I have it straight in my brain. So let's make sure this works. So page load. It worked. Love. And let's take out what we don't need. Love it. And we can click outside, dismiss, and there's our button. Okay, I still get so excited. Even after 10 years of doing this, I still get really excited. Building new things, trying new things, seeing things work in the browser. This was the reason that I wanted to do front-end development. It was this instant gratification of seeing my work in the browser. Okay, so now we need, let's test let's make sure our no thanks is also working, because we put the dismiss. Yeah, perfect. See, that's why we reuse those classes like that. Yes. So now we have this working in all three spaces, all three ways. So here we are, we have the modal up. I cannot scroll. I'm trying to scroll. I can click outside. Our button appears. I can click around on the form, and then and nothing happens. That has no impact. And then I can click the X, and I can click no thanks. Whoops. And then all three of the, come on, stop. And then all three of the times we can also get our button. So this button needs a little extra styling, but let's get at least get our additional click functions in here, our event listeners. Okay, so now we need a modal button event listener. Add event listener, whoops. And do we need a target? I think we do. Oh, excuse me, allergies. I had to sneeze. And there's my dog. That's Heidi. Hey, calm down. Okay, so we want to check and see. I think we're going to do something very similar to this. So if the event target contains if the event target contains active, I don't know if I'm doing this right. We'll find out. If the event target contains the active class, so if the event target does, no, we want it to contain, if it does contain the active class, then we want to remove the active class. We want to remove it from, let's just try removing it from, oh, wait a second. So the event target is the button. if we click the button, well, the button does not contain active. Wait, the button contains active because it's being displayed. So we don't need to check if the target, we just need to check and see if okay. I think this is a good question for ChatGPT. Hang on. I have a button that is active. I have a button with an active class when the modal and body do not have an active class. I have a button with an active class when the modal and body do not have an active class. When I click the button, I want to add active to the modal and body and remove active from the button. Yeah, I know. Okay. So here's our modal window. Here's our body. And it's saying to toggle. So I'm going to ask it, and I would have asked it to refactor anyways, but I'm going to ask it to use what we already have here. Can you refactor this JavaScript and add the functionality I just described? Okay, so let's read this. When the button is clicked, it adds the active class to both the modal and the body and removes the active class from the button. When clicking outside the modal container or on dismissing the buttons, it closes the modal and adds the active class back to the button. Open modal and close modal functions. These encapsulate the logic for opening and closing the modal. This makes the code cleaner and allows reuse. Button click listener. The modal button now listens for a click to open the modal and remove its active class. Dismiss button and outside click. Both event listeners call the close modal function, which closes the modal and adds the active class back to the button. And then we have the set timeout. So let's look here. So here's open modal, close modal, modal button, add event listener, click, and then call the open modal function. Add a click event listener to the modal window for the outside class. Add a listener to all dismiss buttons, yes. And here's our set timeout. All right, let's give it a whirl. Okay. And then we can click. Look at that. No thanks. Click outside. Love it. So all of our functionality is in place. Beautiful. Exactly what I wanted. Exactly what I wanted. So really, the last JavaScript that we need to do is the cookie to remember that decision. Yeah, that's the last thing we need to do, but before we do that, let's just style this button a little bit. I mean, it doesn't need to be too crazy, but it could be better. So let's make it a little bit floaty like this, and let's add a little X, a little SVG. We can reuse our SVG. Let's do that. Where is our SVG? It's right here. I think this is it. And really, this is what we want. So I'll change this to an ID of save, and I'm going to say ARIA labeled by save. Oh, but this is not access hidden, so we can take that off. Actually, I don't think we need that at all. Yeah, we can just do the ARIA hidden true. I don't think we need this because I'm not hiding that text. So we don't need ARIA labeled by, we just want ARIA hidden true so the screen reader doesn't read it. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, perfect. Beautiful. I mean, we could put, yeah, let's put this in a span, and it's just going to make it easier to style. And the span and the SVG are both in line by default, so it'll just be easier to get those lined up. So here's our modal button. Oh, it's display none by default, so it would actually be, I'm going to use Flexbox. So we'll do display flex. Hang on here. We'll do flex flow row no wrap. What else do you need? Think. Where are we? Flex flow, align items, justify content. That's all we need. We'll do align items, center, and justify content. I usually do space between. And then I think we're going to need to style that SVG. We'll style both of them. So we'll do the span and the SVG. We'll say they can both be display block, and the SVG should be, I'm just going to say width 25 pixels, height 25 pixels, and we'll see if we need to adjust it from there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think space between, let's try like space around. Yeah, space around. Space evenly? Yeah, we'll do space evenly. And I think I'm going to flip them. I'm going to put the X on the other side. Space evenly. And then I'm going to put the span beneath the SVG. And I don't know, could this be any prettier? Of course it could be. Well, I think I said I was going to make it a little more floaty. So let's do bottom 10 pixels, left 10 pixels. We'll give it a border radius of, I don't know, 5 pixels. And maybe a little, oh yeah, we need more border radius. Oh, and it looks like I was gonna say, why does it look so weird? It's because it looks like a button, because it looks like a button. So let's do appearance none. And we already have our own background color in there, right? Why does it look gray? Okay, no, it looks white. And we can give it a little more border radius, and I think we just want to border none. And it needs like a color, or it needs something, right? It looks boring. So let's look at our flat UI colors. Could really use any color because we're using black text. So what do we want to use? I want to use mint leaf, which we already have in our CSS files. So I'm going to say background color. I think I just called it mint green. And let's give it a little more border. I'm going to give it 15 pixels border radius, and then just the border itself, none. And we know from last week that white text against this mint green is not accessible. So as much as I would love for this text to be white, it's just not accessible. So we can't do that, unfortunately. Yeah. Let's make sure, so if I put a color in here, even though I don't need to, I just want to look in the browser and see what the contrast is. So if we put the color in here, no contrast information available, probably because it needs to be on the span. Oh, that's in the wrong spot. Yeah, so the contrast ratio is barely, well, I mean, it's almost AAA with that green. It's double A, which I think is acceptable. And if we change this to white, it doesn't work at all. Yeah, it doesn't, it's not even close to being double A rated. So we have to leave it as black. So, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not a designer. I'm an average designer, an extremely average designer. So now if we dismiss, we get our button. If we click the button, we get back our modal. Excellent. I love it. So really, the final thing that I want to do here today is get this cookie sorted out. Yeah, the cookie, so the cookie is going to, on page load, check to see what the cookie is. If you have that cookie set, it will not show the modal, it will just show the button. And if the cookie has expired, it will show the modal, but if you dismiss the modal, it will show the button. And our cookie is, so let's go ahead and reload here. We'll go to all, the way we can see that, if you don't know already. It's in the header information for the page. So it's under, I don't even think we have cookies here. We're working locally. So it would show up here as a response header, request header, response header. So it's going to show up here. So let's see if we can write a cookie. Well, I know we can do it. Okay, so here's where I need my notes. Should we just ask ChatGPT to help us? I mean, I have the notes, so let's see if we can do it. All right. So I'm going to come down here. So here's what I have. First, I have a function that creates a cookie, and the function parameters are the name of the cookie, the value of the cookie, and the hours. And so how that looks when you call it inside the event listener is, let me find it here. It would look something like this. So this is a cookie that I wrote, and I'm not going to put it inside the event listener yet. This is a cookie that I wrote for a GTM, like a Google Tag Manager, a consent banner basically, for EU and India when we show our landing pages and our websites for the organization that I work in to be GDPR compliant. So we created a cookie called GTM tracking, and then the value had to be that it was accept, and then there was also a timer, and 720 hours is 30 days. So we remember this cookie for 30 days. I don't think that we need a value, but I'll just do true or false is what I'm going to do. So we'll just say true to get started. And then let's call our cookie, we can just call it modal window. So that's going to be the name of it in the response header. The value is going to be true, and our timing, we could just do like 48 hours. So 2 days. Well, let me see here. What's 7 days? I was kind of thinking 7 times 24, 168. I'm going to do 168, which is 7 days. So it would remember this decision. It would remember that you dismissed modal window dismiss modal window dismiss equals true for 168 days. Yeah. So that's the cookie that we're going to create. Let's move this back up to the top because we need to use this. Put this here. So we create our cookie. Here's opening the modal, here's closing the modal. So we would add it here to create the cookie. So let's see if that works. And actually, we're gonna have to do something here. So I think we can take out domain and secure. I am gonna ask ChatGPT. Where are we? Right here. Oh, stop. So when I create a cookie, no, that's not what I want to ask. When I dismiss the modal, I want to create a cookie. What cookie parameters should I use to work on localhost, and what do I need in production? So the parameter, what document.cookie parameters, what document.cookie parameters should I use to work on localhost, and what do I need in production? Domain, you don't need to specify. Secure, avoid using secure for production. Yeah, so is it going to tell me what to do? Oh, perfect. Is production false? Well, on localhost. Modal dismissed, true, 24. Cookie valid for 24 hours on localhost. Modal dismissed, true, 20. Okay, that works. Important notes for production. Secure. Use this flag only when your website. Yep, I knew that. Same site. Set to lax or strict, depending on how restrictive you want to be with cross-site requests. Lax allows the cookie to be sent with top-level navigation following links to your site, while strict prevents sending the cookie with any cross-site requests. Path. This ensures the cookie is accessible across your entire site, not just the current path. So did it put that in there for us? Yes, it did. Nice. Okay. So now we want to make sure that we're creating our cookie with those parameters. Did I have it here and just delete it? Where are you? I think I did. Oh no, there it is. Okay, so we create the cookie when we close the modal. And we're working locally, so we have to have on localhost, we don't have to have a value. In production, we have to have a value there. So I'll skip the final value for now. And we can write a condition. We can write a condition to check and see if we're on localhost. So I'll do that last. So for now, when we close the modal, we should see modal window dismiss equals true. We should see that. Okay, so now I dismiss it. We see our button. There it is. There's our cookie. So it's the request header. I think I said earlier that it was the response header. It's the request header. But here's our modal window dismiss true. So now we can check to see if this cookie exists and not do the set timeout. Okay. So now we do I think we just do so now we do if read cookie because we have this extra function now, which is to read the cookie. So if read cookie, which is called modal window dismiss, so if read cookie, which is modal window dismiss, so if this exists, if this is true, so really it would be if this does not exist, then do this. Well, we'll find out if I'm right. So if this cookie does not exist, then go ahead and do this. And we know it exists because we can see it in the request header. So let's see what happens. Yeah, it doesn't come up, so that's good. So let's delete that now. We'll delete that. Reload. And it comes up. Okay, so we're missing though our button. Yeah, so we just have to make sure that our button, if the cookie is set, and the modal does not appear, we need to make sure, oh, dang it, Doc, get out of my way. We need to make sure that this button is appearing in place of the modal, so we can call the modal. So let's see how we do that. So I would say else we just really want the button to be active. Let's ask ChatGPT if this is right. Am I correctly checking to see if there's a cookie? Yes, you're on the right track. However, ChatGPT is very good about letting me know that I'm not quite there. Okay, yes, you're on the right track with checking for the presence of a cookie. However, you need to make sure that your read cookie function is correctly defined and returns the expected value. Here's how you can improve or confirm the correct behavior. A typical cookie function would look like this. Your cookie checking logic. With the read cookie function defined as above, your code to check for the cookie looks good. So as long as your read cookie function is implemented correctly as shown. Wait a second. So it said okay, so it thinks that this is my logic to read the cookie. It doesn't know that that's not my logic. That's why. So let's see. Let's tell it what my logic is. Which, by the way, my logic I got from ChatGPT. So, but you know, I'm splitting hairs. This is my logic to check for a cookie. Okay, so yeah, I did it right. Nice. Okay, so let's put it all together here and see what happens. So the cookie should be set. So if I refresh, we see our button, there's no window. Let's confirm that our cookie is in the request header. Right here, modal window dismiss equals true. Let's click our button to get our modal. Excellent. We can dismiss it. Beautiful. Okay, so now let's delete that cookie. Reload. And there's our modal. So let's confirm that we don't have a cookie in the request header. We do not. So now I will dismiss this and our button pops up and we have to refresh the page to check the request header again. But here it is, modal window dismiss equals true. Excellent. So there are some considerations here for sure when it's the difference between working locally and working in production. So the way we would account for that, because here's the create cookie right here, and the way we check to see if we're basically not on localhost, that's how I would define, I mean, it's the difference between being on localhost and being on HTTPS. And beyond that, I would say read the documentation on the parameters that are available. And by parameters, I mean the create cookies parameters. So for production, add secure and same site attributes. So we could add this. So I'm going to do this. Const localhost equals localhost equals window dot, hang on, we'll look right here in the console. So if we do window dot location, we're really just checking to see if the host name is this or localhost, I would say. Window dot location dot host name. Yeah, dot host name. So I would say if, how are they defining? So is production equals false. So I would say if localhost equals, put this in parentheses, and we'll say and equals this or localhost equals, I think this is a bad name, we'll just call it host name. And we want this to be in parentheses, so checks that condition first. So if the host name is this, if the host name so if it is not 127 or it is not localhost and is production is true, then you would want to add the secure and same site. What did it say about same site lacks? Oh, Doc, you're driving me crazy. Same site, set to lax or strict depending on how restrictive you want to be with cross-site requests. Lax allows the cookie to be sent with top-level navigation, following links to your site, while strict prevents sending the cookie with any cross-site requests. Okay, so we do want it to be sent with navigation. So I think for production, add secure. So if it's not localhost and it is production, then we add secure and same site lax onto the cookie string. Okay, I think that makes sense. Let's make sure that this makes sense. Oh, it needs to be, okay. Typo. That makes sense. Good. See, I'm glad I checked. Perfect. Okay. So let's check and see. No, I'm not going to do any more refactoring. Things get messy sometimes. Let's go back to network. Okay, so let's refresh. Here's our cookie. So let's delete the cookie and see how things look. Reload. Oh, beautiful. And let's reload again. Make sure we can see the cookie. There it is. Excellent. Wow, I'm really glad I decided to do this. This was so fun. And I mean, this is such a common user experience. Yeah, this is such a common user experience. I just really wanted to build this for myself. Oh, Doc, you're killing me. Stop. I really wanted to build this for myself. And, you know, our cookie isn't an exhaustive, the cookie function that we created, you could use so many different ways. I mean, you could set, I'm using it one way. I'm basically saying, hey, go ahead and create this cookie for 7 days when they dismiss the window, any way they dismiss the window, because you can dismiss it 3 different ways, right? You could click, oh, Doc, stop. You can dismiss the window 3 ways. You can click outside the window, you could click the X, or you can click no thanks. But you could create this cookie, you could create a timer 3 different ways, right? And show that window. So maybe if they click no thanks, it's 7 days. But if they click the X, it's 2 days. If they click outside the window, it's 24 hours, something like that. So this is very flexible, this function. Yeah, I love it. We have a nice little animation. Wow, look at that. And you can't scroll when it's up. Beautiful. Well, project number 2 in the books. This makes me so happy. This makes me so happy. It took 1 extra stream than I thought it would. I thought I would be able to do this entire thing last weekend. And it took 3 streams, but I don't really mind because it turned out so well and I love how it looks. So tomorrow for the stream, I just have like something that I think we can definitely do in one day, which is, let me pull it up here. So Pinterest style masonry CSS. Where was it here? Smashing Magazine, November 2020. I want to follow this tutorial and do a native CSS masonry layout in CSS Grid, also known as Pinterest, the Pinterest layout. So if you're not familiar with Pinterest, it looks like this. It looks like this. It's a very similar to this, and it's called Masonry. And I've never used CSS Grid before. I really only use Flexbox. So yeah, so we're going to learn how to do this together tomorrow and create. We're just going to follow this tutorial and we'll do a design and we'll go ahead and work on this. I'm really looking forward to this, and I really want this to be something that we can do in one afternoon. Let's go ahead and get this committed and deployed to Heroku. Whoops, hang on, good commit. JavaScript and cookie for Modal window. And let's see here. Where are we? Here. And I'll go ahead and write a README this week. And then let's go to Heroku. And I'm going to deploy the main branch. I'll make this a little bigger. Deploy the main branch. Yeah, this will be a great test to see if our cookie works the way it should on HTTPS. We'll look at that. So if I dismiss, now we have our button. Nice. Let's take a look here in the network tab. Go ahead and refresh. Here's our request cookie. Oh, this doc, I'm telling you, I can't. All the different ways that we can dismiss. So now let's go ahead and delete that cookie. Reload. And now, oh, and there's our modal after 2 seconds. And no cookie in the request header. So now I can dismiss. Our button comes up. Let's refresh. And there's our cookie. Awesome. Love it. So let's go ahead and get this into our GitHub repo. Well, I guess that's it for today. Thanks to all the people who popped in. 148 views today, 148 people popped in. That's the most I've ever had on a stream. So thank you to all the people who stopped in to check things out. I appreciate you. I hope that you come back tomorrow or sometime in the future to hang out and work with us. Yeah, tomorrow I'll be here at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we're going to go ahead and work on the Pinterest Masonry CSS Grid layout. And until then, I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.